My name is Evelyn Carter, and for as long as I can remember, my life has revolved around my sister, Lauren. If you asked our neighbors in the sleepy Connecticut suburb where we grew up, they'd tell you that the Carter girls were the envy of the block, two pretty daughters, smart, polite, and always together like matching porcelain dolls. But if you asked me, I'd tell you the truth. Only Lauren was the porcelain doll. I was the shadow she left behind. Lauren was everything our father, Richard Carter, ever seemed to want. She had his sharp green eyes and our mother's delicate mouth. She spoke in careful sentences that made teachers nod in approval, and she never came home with muddy shoes or wild stories like I did. Our mother, Diane, used to say with a strained smile, "Evelyn, you're just more like me. That's not a bad thing." I didn't know what she meant back then, but I do now. When I was 15, I heard Lauren laughing through the wall with her friends. "Dad only cares about me because I'm perfect," she whispered, her voice sticky with pride. "Evie's just the spare. If I messed up, maybe he'd look at her, but I don't mess up." She was right. She never did mess up. I was the one who came home drunk at 16, the one who borrowed Dad's car and scraped the bumper, the one who dyed my hair bright red just to see if he'd notice. He did. He yelled. But when Lauren brought home a single A-, Dad just ruffled her hair and told her to do better next time, sweetheart. And she did. She always did. I went to college 3 hours away just to breathe. Dad paid for it all: tuition, rent, the battered second-hand Honda he insisted I drive so I wouldn't waste money on nonsense. I never asked why he gave me everything without question when I was supposedly the disappointment. Maybe I didn't want to know. Lauren stayed closer to home. She went to a prestigious business school and turned at Dad's company, and everyone said she'd be the next vice president of operations by 30. She moved into a sleek condo downtown that Dad helped her furnish. I heard from Mom that he bought her a new car when she got her promotion. I pretended not to care. At 25, I sat alone in my too-small apartment. Not the nice student housing Dad once paid for, but a single room I found on Craigslist when I decided to cut myself off. The air smelled faintly of mildew and the paint peeled near the baseboards, but it was mine. I still remember the look on Dad's face when I told him I didn't need his money anymore. "Don't be foolish, Evie," he said, voice low and tight, like he was fighting with himself. "You don't have to prove anything." "I'm not proving anything," I lied. "I just want to stand on my own 2 feet for once." Lauren's laughter echoed in my head for weeks. She didn't say anything to my face, of course. She never did. But she made sure I heard the rumors. She told my old friends that I was broke, that I was drowning in debt, that I probably begged Dad for cash under the table. She told them I was pathetic. They told me. And I smiled and told them it was all true. The worst part was I was broke. I took a job at a small marketing firm that paid me just enough to cover rent, student loans, and cheap wine on Fridays. No more brunches on Dad's dime, no more safety net. I let my hair grow out to its natural brown. I wore thrift store jackets and boots with worn soles. And every time Lauren's perfect Instagram life popped up on my feed, I reminded myself, this is what you chose, Evie. You chose this. And then I chose revenge. It started small. I knew Lauren bragged about how indispensable she was at Dad's company, how the executives trusted her more than the older employees. She was so sure of her place that she got careless leaving files open, gossiping over wine in the office lounge. I started paying attention. I found out she'd been talking to a competitor about a new product Dad's company was developing, nothing illegal, just careless chatter with her MBA friends at networking events. But it was enough. I told myself it wasn't just about bringing her down. It was about seeing Dad's face when he realized his perfect daughter had cracks in her porcelain skin. I pictured him looking at me, really looking, and seeing something other than a mistake. I waited for the right moment. It came late on a Tuesday night when Lauren was staying late at the office to finish a quarterly report. I knew the building code. She bragged about how Dad trusted her with the master keycard. I slipped inside, my heart hammering so loudly I thought I'd faint. I told myself it was just snooping. Just a peek. I found her laptop open on her sleek white desk. Next to it, a file drawer stood slightly ajar. My hands moved before I could think. I copied a few emails onto a flash drive, enough to raise eyebrows if they landed on the CEO's desk. Enough to knock her off her pedestal. But as I slid the drawer closed, something caught my eye. A plain white envelope, thick and heavy. Curiosity one. I opened it. It was a DNA test. And the name on it was mine. My breath stopped in my throat as I read the bold black letters. Probability of paternity, 0%. I dropped the paper. My knees hit the carpet. 1,000 memories flooded my mind. Dad's tight jaw when I said I didn't look like him. Mom's sighs when I asked why Lauren and I didn't have the same eyes. The way Dad always slipped me cash when Lauren wasn't looking. I thought I wanted revenge. But revenge didn't feel like this. I picked up the test, stuffed it in my coat pocket, and fled into the night, the parking lot spinning around me. My phone buzzed with the text from Lauren. "Hey loser, don't forget we're having dinner at Mom and Dad's tomorrow. Try not to look so poor, okay?" I almost laughed. Almost. I had no idea that my plan to ruin Lauren would unravel everything I thought I knew, about her, about me, about the man I'd called my father my whole life. The next day, I sat in my beat-up Honda in front of my parents' brick house, staring at the DNA test in my bag. I could hear Lauren's voice in my head. Try not to look so poor, okay? My hands shook on the steering wheel. I almost turned the key and drove away. I could have disappeared, changed my number, found a new city, left this whole rotten family behind. But I couldn't. Not yet. Inside, Mom greeted me with her soft, careful smile. Diane Carter had mastered the art of ignoring tension. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like Chanel No. 5 and roasted chicken. Evie, honey, you look tired. Are you eating enough? I'm fine, Mom. I let her fuss over my coat, my hair, the scuff on my boot. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Was she part of this lie too? Did she know? Lauren appeared at the top of the stairs, phone pressed to her ear, lips curved in a predator's grin. Yeah, Dad, she's here. I know, she looks like she slept in that sweater. Her eyes flicked down to me and widened in mock concern. Oh, sorry, Evie. Didn't see you there. I wanted to slap that smug look off her face. Instead, I smiled. Love you too, sis. At dinner, Dad sat at the head of the table like a king surveying his kingdom. He looked older than I remembered, deep lines around his mouth, more gray in his hair. But his eyes, sharp and calculating, never missed anything. He asked Lauren about work, about her latest pitch to the board. She glowed under his praise. They spoke in corporate code I barely understood. When he turned to me, the warmth in his eyes felt like a knife. How's your job, Evie? Still marketing, is it? It's fine, Dad. He nodded, like he didn't believe me. Maybe he never had. Lauren smirked into her wine glass. You know, Dad, Evie's living in a pretty rough neighborhood these days. I keep telling her she could stay with me, but you know how stubborn she is. I like my neighborhood. My voice came out too sharp. Mom's fork clinked against her plate. Girls, please, she murmured. Not tonight. Dad didn't scold Lauren. He never did. He just studied me, those green eyes flicking over my face like he was searching for something familiar. Did he see it now? That I didn't belong to him? I reached into my bag. My fingers brushed the DNA test. I almost pulled it out right there, slapped it on the table, forced them all to look at it. But I didn't. Not yet. I needed to know why. After dinner, I found Dad alone in his study, pouring 2 fingers of whiskey into a heavy glass. He didn't look up when I stepped inside. The shelves behind him were lined with family photos, Lauren at graduation, Lauren at her sweet 16, Lauren with her first car. A few scattered pictures of me, but always beside Lauren, like an afterthought. I cleared my throat. Dad, can we talk? He took a slow sip, then set the glass down. Of course. Sit down. I sat across from him, the leather chair cold against my arms. For a second, I wondered if he could hear my heart pounding. I know about Lauren, I said. His eyebrows twitched just barely. I know she's been talking to competitors. About the new product. She's not as perfect as you think. A muscle in his jaw ticked. He picked up his glass again. Careful, Evelyn. Accusations like that can ruin careers. Good, I shot back. Maybe she deserves it. He studied me in silence. His eyes softened just a fraction. Is that why you're really here? To tear down your sister? I hesitated. My hand slipped into my bag again. I felt the paper's edge, sharp and accusing. I wanted to scream at him. Why didn't you tell me? Whose daughter am I? Why did you lie? But the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I said, she deserves it. After everything she said about me. About you? You think she's loyal? She laughs behind your back, Dad. She thinks you're too old to run the company. She says you'll step down soon and she'll be the boss. His eyes darkened. He set his glass down, harder this time. That girl, he trailed off, staring past me at something I couldn't see. I pressed on. If I bring you proof, real proof, you'll do something about it, right? You'll see her for who she is. His mouth twisted into something like a smile, but there was no warmth in it. Evelyn, you've always wanted your sister's crown. Is that it? You want her throne? I almost laughed. I don't want anything of hers. I just want you to see the truth. He stood and came around the desk. For a moment, I thought he might hug me, but he only rested a heavy hand on my shoulder. His thumb brushed my hair back, so gently it made my chest ache. Bring me what you have, he said quietly. And then we'll talk. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. He still didn't know I had the DNA test. Or maybe he did. Maybe he'd known all along. That night, I lay awake on my lumpy mattress, the DNA report spread out on my chest like a ghost pressing down on my ribs. Who was my father, really? If it wasn't Richard Carter, the man whose approval I chased for 25 years, then who? And why had he kept me close when he knew I wasn't his? Questions clawed at my brain until dawn broke gray and thin through the dusty blinds. I thought about my mother, her tired eyes, her soft hand smoothing my hair as a child. Did she still love Dad? Did she know how much he favored me in secret? Or was that another lie we all told ourselves to keep this house standing? I thought about Lauren too, the golden child, the one who never failed, the one who laughed at my poverty while I dug deeper into her secrets. She had no idea how close I was to ripping the mask off her perfect life. But even if I did, what then? Would Dad thank me? Would he hate me? Would he send me away now that I wasn't really his? I pressed my palms over my eyes until I saw stars. No turning back now, Evie. You wanted the truth? You're going to get it. Outside, my phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. Meet me. I know what you found. L. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Lauren knew. Of course she did. She always knew more than I did. I met Lauren in the dim back corner of a downtown cafe, the kind with overpriced lattes and soft indie music playing just loud enough to cover up ugly truths. She sat waiting for me like a queen at her private court. Perfect hair, perfect nails, phone face down beside a half-finished cappuccino. When she saw me walk in, she gave me that sugary smile that always made my skin crawl. Evie, sit. I sat. Neither of us said anything at first. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. She toyed with her spoon, tapping it against her cup. A soft clink, clink, clink that set my teeth on edge. So I started, forcing my voice not to shake. You know I found it. Her eyebrows lifted just slightly, the only sign she wasn't completely in control. Found what? I leaned in, my breath fogging the cheap cafe table. Don't play dumb, Lauren. The DNA test. The emails. Everything. You think you're so clever, but you left it all right there in your desk like a trophy. She laughed. Not loud, just a short, sharp sound that made the hair on my neck stand up. Of course I left it there. I wanted you to find it. My mouth went dry. What are you talking about? Lauren sat back, folding her arms over her expensive cream blazer. She looked like she belonged in a corner office, not the sticky cafe booth across from her half-broke sister. Dad's been hiding it for years. He thinks he's so careful. But he's predictable. I found the first test when I was 18. Mom begged him to burn it, but he kept it in his safe. I made a copy. Just in case. She leaned forward now, her perfume sharp and suffocating. Do you really think you could ruin me with your little spy game, Evie? Please. I've known for years that you're not one of us. Her words hit me like cold water. Then why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you tell me? She shrugged, casual as flicking lint from her sleeve. Because it was useful. Every time you screwed up, Dad covered for you. Paid your tuition. Paid your rent. Cleaned up your messes. While I worked twice as hard to get half as much. I wanted you to owe me. To owe him. And you do, don't you? I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles ached. You don't know anything about me. She tilted her head, almost pitying. Don't I? You think he loves you so much more than me. That's what you always tell yourself, right? That's the prize you hold over me. I studied the lab's name, the doctor's signature, the simple number. I thought about my mother, the way she always looked away when Dad raised his voice, the way she'd flinch when he said my name in that sharp, cutting tone. And I realized there was one person who might actually tell me the truth if I could get her to talk. I grabbed my phone and dialed. It rang twice before she answered, her voice hushed like she didn't want Dad to hear. Evie? Honey? Is everything okay? I pressed my forehead to my knee, my voice small and shaking. Mom, we need to talk. Tomorrow. Alone. There was a pause, a beat of static, of something cracking on the other end of the line. All right, baby. Come home tomorrow morning. I'll make coffee. I ended the call. In the silence of my rented room, I lay back and stared at the cracked ceiling. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel tired. Lauren thought she could bury me under her secrets. She didn't understand I'd been buried my whole life. It was time to dig myself out. Mom's voice trembled when she opened the door for me the next morning. She looked smaller in the daylight, standing there in her pale robe with her hair pulled back the same way she used to when I was a kid homesick from school. For a moment, I almost wished I could forget everything, crawl back into her arms and let her brush my hair while she whispered that everything would be okay. But that was gone. It had probably never been real to begin with. She ushered me into the kitchen. The smell of fresh coffee almost made me laugh. How normal it was, how normal she tried to be. She poured 2 mugs and sat across from me at the table, her hands cradling the cup like she needed the warmth to keep herself together. You didn't sleep, I said. She flinched a little at my tone. Neither did you. I pulled the DNA test from my bag and laid it flat between us. She didn't touch it, just stared at the black letters like they might catch fire if she blinked. Tell me the truth, I said. No softness, no pleading. I'd begged too much in my life already. She closed her eyes. I could see her lips moving, counting seconds, maybe, or prayers. Then she looked at me, really looked at me. I always knew you'd find out someday. Who is he? Mom's hands trembled so hard she set the coffee down. A drop splashed on the paper but didn't smear the truth away. His name was Michael Avery, she said. The name meant nothing to me, just a ghost syllable that sounded too clean for this mess. He was an old friend. We met before Richard and I were married. He was wild, charming, reckless. He wanted to take me away, but I was already engaged. I thought I'd moved on. I could almost see it, the young version of my mother standing in some cheap motel parking lot, her hair blowing in the wind while she made excuses to herself. The story felt distant, like watching a movie I couldn't pause. You cheated on Dad. It didn't come out as an accusation. Just a fact, dropped between us like a pebble in deep water. Mom didn't deny it. She nodded, eyes shining with tears she didn't let fall. I did. I didn't plan it. Michael left town before I even knew I was pregnant. I tried to tell Richard, but he wouldn't listen. He said it didn't matter, that he'd raise you as his own. I felt my jaw clench until my teeth ached. So he knew. The whole time. He knew. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Her fingers hovered, then fell back to her lap. I thought of Dad, the way he'd slip me cash behind Lauren's back, the way he'd defend me when she mocked my mistakes. All that time, I thought he was punishing me by loving her more. But the truth was so much worse. Why did he stay with you? I asked. Why did he keep me? Mom's laugh was small and bitter. Because you looked like me when I was young. Because every time he saw you, he saw the girl he married, the girl he thought he could own. He hates that you're not his Evelyn. But he needs you. To remind him. To punish me. Her voice cracked on the last word. I wanted to feel sorry for her. I didn't. Not yet. Does Lauren know everything? Mom's shoulders stiffened. Not everything. She found the test years ago, but she doesn't know who your father is. She doesn't care. She just wanted to hurt you. She did, I said quietly. Asterisk, she did a good job. Mom's hands clenched around her mug. Evie, please don't let this ruin you. Don't let it make you cruel like him. Like her. I looked at her, my mother, this small, broken woman who'd handed me to a man who loved me for all the wrong reasons. And I realized she was the root of all of it. The first lie. The first betrayal. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, but I already knew the answer. She shook her head helplessly. Because I wanted you to feel safe. To have a father. To have a sister. I thought if I kept the lie alive, you'd be happy. I stood up so fast my chair scraped the tile. The air felt thick and stale. You didn't do it for me. You did it for you. So you wouldn't lose your pretty house and your perfect family. EVA. I grabbed the DNA test, folding it carefully back into my bag like an old wound I couldn't stop pressing. I have to go. Mom called after me as I left, but I didn't look back. The front door slammed behind me with a hollow echo that felt like an ending. Outside, the sky was heavy with rain. I sat in my car and let the storm drum on the roof while my mind raced. Michael Avery. A name I'd never heard. A ghost who'd left a stain on all of us. I wondered if he was alive. If he'd care. If he'd even remember my mother's name. I could hear Lauren's voice again, you're nothing. Maybe she was right. Or maybe she just handed me the sharpest weapon I'd ever hold. I didn't go back to my apartment. Instead, I drove aimlessly through the city streets until I found myself parked outside Dad's company building. Tall, cold glass and stone. The place where Lauren sat on her throne, untouchable. I thought about the emails on my flash drive. The ones that proved she'd leaked just enough secrets to get her fired if I dropped them on the CEO's desk. I thought about the trust fund Dad could snap shut with a phone call. The house I'd never own. The family that had never really been mine. They wanted me to vanish quietly. They thought my hunger for scraps made me weak. But maybe being nothing was freedom. No name. No loyalty. No reason to stay silent. I started the car. I knew what I had to do next. The next morning I showed up at the Carter Industries headquarters before dawn, the glass lobby echoing with my footsteps. I looked out of place, my cheap coat, scuffed boots, hair pulled into a knot I hadn't bothered to brush smooth. The receptionist barely glanced up when I signed in as a visitor. No one here looked twice at people like me. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt like an eternity. When the door slid open, I stepped onto plush carpet that probably cost more than a month of my rent. The hallway smelled faintly of fresh paint and ambition. Somewhere behind one of these doors, my sister sat in her high-backed chair, pretending she owned the place. But I didn't go to Lauren first. I went to see Alan Dorsey, the chief operating officer. Dad's right hand. I'd only met him twice at company parties when I was the embarrassing daughter who drank too much wine and laughed too loud. But he'd always liked me more than he liked Lauren. He liked anyone more than he liked Lauren. His assistant tried to stop me at first, but I handed her a folder, crisp, labeled confidential in bold black marker, and said, "Tell him Evelyn Carter needs 5 minutes. He'll want to see this." She disappeared inside. Less than a minute later, the door swung open. Alan was older than I remembered, soft belly pressing against an expensive shirt, hair thinning in a polite comb-over. But his eyes were sharp. "Evelyn Carter," he said, like tasting something unexpected. "This is a surprise." I stepped in, the folder clutched like a lifeline. Not as much as what's in there. He sat behind his huge walnut desk, flipping through the pages I'd printed, Lauren's emails, carefully curated to show how she bragged about casual conversations with Dad's biggest competitor, how she'd hinted at leaks to sweeten her own rise. Alan's eyebrows rose a fraction. He looked at me over the rim of his glasses. You know what this is, Evelyn? Evidence, I said. Proof she's careless at best. Treacherous at worst. He set the folder down, steepling his fingers. Why bring it to me? You could have run to your father. I met his eyes dead on. You bury it. Or bury me. You know how he is about her. But you care about the company more than you care about my sister's pride, don't you? Alan gave a small, amused snort. That's true. He tapped the folder once, twice. Do you want money, Evelyn? I assume this is blackmail. The word made my stomach twist, but I held my ground. No. I want her out. And I want him to know it was me. That's all. Alan studied me like I was a puzzle he wasn't sure how to solve. And what do you expect will happen to you when she's gone? I shrugged. Nothing good, probably. But I don't care anymore. For a long moment, the only sound was the clock ticking on his shelf. Then Alan leaned back in his chair, a slow grin spreading across his face. You are your father's daughter, he said softly, almost to himself. Even if you aren't. He slid the folder into his top drawer. I'll handle this, Evelyn. Quietly. You'll get your wish. Go home. I didn't go home. I waited in the lobby cafe instead, sipping stale coffee while the clock crawled toward 8 a.m. When Lauren arrived, I saw her before she saw me, her hair perfect, her lipstick flawless, striding through the security gates like she owned the marble under her heels. She didn't look at me. She never did. An hour later, I saw Alan step into her glass-walled office. I couldn't hear their voices, but I didn't need to. I watched her face shift from smug surprise to confusion to rage, all in the space of seconds. She pointed at him. She pointed at the folder. He stayed perfectly calm. When he walked out, she stood frozen, staring at the papers spread across her desk like they were burning holes through her skin. A security guard approached her door. Another one waited outside the elevator. Lauren slammed her laptop shut. Her eyes flicked up, and through the glass, they met mine. For one heartbeat, I thought she'd come flying out, screaming like a banshee, claws bared. But she didn't. She gathered her coat with shaking hands, smoothed her hair, and let the guards escort her out like a polite guest who'd overstayed her welcome. She turned once before the elevator doors closed, her eyes locked on mine. No words. No threat. Just pure, seething hate. I lifted my coffee cup in a silent toast. Outside, the wind cut through my coat as I stood on the sidewalk, watching the high glass tower that no longer had a throne waiting for my sister. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Dad. I let it ring twice before I answered. Evelyn. His voice was cold as stone. Come to the house. Now. He was waiting for me in his study when I arrived, the same whiskey glass on the same polished desk, the same family photos judging me from their gold frames. But he didn't offer me a drink this time. He didn't sit behind the desk either. He stood in front of it, arms folded across his chest like a judge waiting to deliver a sentence. You did this, he said. I didn't bother denying it. She deserved it. His laugh was sharp, humorless. You think this makes you clever? You think you've won something? I took a step closer, meeting his eyes, those eyes I'd once pretended were my own. No. I think I took back what was mine. He stalked toward me so fast I almost flinched. But I didn't. His breath smelled like stale whiskey and fury. I gave you everything. Everything, Evelyn. When you were nothing, a mistake, I raised you as mine. I paid for your life. I protected you from her. And this is how you repay me. Something inside me snapped, a wire pulled too tight for too long. You didn't do it for me, I said. You did it for you. To punish Mom. To keep your little ghost in the house. I was never your daughter. Just your proof she'd never really leave you. His hand twitched like he wanted to slap me, but he didn't. He just stared, and for the first time I saw it. The tired old man behind the iron mask. The king of nothing. You're right, he said finally, voice so low I had to lean in to hear. You were never mine. And now you have nothing. He turned to his desk, pulled open a drawer, and tossed a thick envelope onto the leather chair beside me. My name was scrawled on it in his sharp handwriting. Your trust. Closed. Your car, sell it if you want. This is the last thing you get from me. I didn't touch the envelope. I just watched him, this man I'd called Dad for 25 years, this man who twisted my life to match his regret. And I realized I felt nothing at all for him anymore. Not hate. Not fear. Not even pity. Goodbye, Richard, I said. Not Dad. Not ever again. I left the envelope on the chair when I walked out. I stepped out of that house for the last time with the faint scent of old whiskey and dying roses clinging to my clothes. The rain had stopped. The sky was a flat gray. The sun a pale ghost behind the clouds, the kind of morning that felt like neither a beginning nor an end, just a place in between. I didn't go back to my shabby rented room. I didn't even bother to check my phone, though I saw Lauren's name light up the screen once, twice before going dark for good. She called to threaten me, maybe beg me to fix it, maybe promise to drag me down in some new way, but it didn't matter. She'd never have the power again. Not over me. Instead, I drove until I found myself on the edge of town. parked at a gas station where the neon open sign buzzed like an insect under the morning drizzle. I sat behind the wheel, staring at my reflection in the dark glass of the convenience store window. I wondered if I looked like him, the man whose name my mother had whispered like a curse, Michael Avery. I had his name now, but that was all. A name and a hole the size of an entire identity. Who was he? Did he know he'd left a daughter behind like a forgotten receipt in my mother's coat pocket? Did he care? I could have asked Mom for more, but I didn't. I didn't want her version of him, romantic, tragic, doomed. I wanted the truth, unpolished. I pulled out my phone. It took me all of 10 minutes to find him online. The internet makes ghosts easier to summon. His name popped up next to an old black and white photo. A man with a crooked smile and eyes that looked too much like mine. The article said he ran a motorcycle shop 3 towns over, still alive, still working with oil-stained hands at 63. Married twice. No mention of kids. I thought about driving there. About walking into that garage and asking if he remembered my mother's perfume. If he'd ever wondered if there might be an Evelyn somewhere out in the world, carrying his crooked smile and her mother's quiet lies. But I didn't. Not that day. Instead, I drove to the cheapest hotel I could find, paid cash for 2 nights, and lay on the squeaky mattress staring at the water stain on the ceiling. My whole life had been rooms like this, even when the furniture was fancier. Just spaces full of secrets, doors locked against truths no one wanted to say out loud. When I finally slept, I dreamed of my mother standing in our kitchen window, hair pinned up, staring out at the street as if waiting for someone who'd never come home. I dreamed of Richard Carter sitting alone in his study, the house around him too big and too silent, no ghosts left to punish but himself. And I dreamed of Lauren, her perfect mask cracked wide open, her eyes empty where her crown used to sit. I woke up with the dawn bleeding pale pink through the threadbare curtains. No answers waiting for me. No apology that would make any of it worth it. Just me, Evelyn. No Carter anymore. 2 weeks later, I stood outside the motorcycle shop. It was smaller than I expected, old brick, faded signage, a few battered bikes parked out front. I could smell oil and rubber and the promise of something real. I almost turned around 3 times. But the 4th time I stepped inside. The man behind the counter was tall, wiry, his hair more gray than brown, a rag tucked into the back pocket of his jeans. He looked up when the bell over the door jingled. His eyes met mine and narrowed. Not suspicious, just curious, like he couldn't place where he'd seen this face before. "Help you, miss." His voice was rough but not unkind. I wanted to say I'm your daughter. I wanted to see him flinch, to see his mouth shape a shocked apology that would stitch up the hole in my chest. But I didn't. Not yet. "Do you do tune-ups here?" I asked instead, my voice steady. He nodded, wiping his hands on the rag. "Best in town. What are you riding?" "An old Honda," I said, and it felt like the smallest truth I could offer him for now. He gave me a smile that looked like mine. "Bring it by. I'll take care of it." I nodded. We stood there for a second too long, 2 strangers with matching eyes, not saying what we both didn't know how to say. When I stepped back outside, the sun broke through the clouds at last. A thin beam of gold on cracked pavement. I don't know how this ends. Maybe I'll go back next week. Maybe I'll tell him who I am. Maybe I won't. Lauren moved out of state. Mom still calls sometimes, her voice small, asking if I'm okay, if I'm eating, if I'll ever come home. I tell her I'm fine. I don't know if I ever will be. Richard Carter's company survives. Of course it does. Men like him always find new ghosts to haunt. I don't think about him anymore. Except when I catch my reflection and wonder if I ever look like him at all. I didn't. I never did. I kept the DNA test. Not because I need it, but because sometimes you have to hold your scars in your hand to remind yourself what you survived. I'm not the perfect daughter. I'm not the poor disappointment. I'm not a secret to be buried in a desk drawer. I'm Evelyn. And for the first time in my life, that's enough.